Everything in life is cause and effect. So there are some probable outcomes that are going to happen already based on what's been happening so far. And the cards, all they do, they just mirror that to you in forms of symbols. Okay, this is Mike Segula from TruthTheory.com, and welcome to another episode of True Spirituality. This is my series on metaphysics, esotericism, mysticism, and spirituality. And if you are new here, please subscribe. This is already episode 17, and we are covering all sorts of interesting topics in metaphysics, spirituality, psychedelics, reincarnation, consciousness, meditation, law of one, anything in between. So today let's talk about tarot cards. So how do tarot cards work? Is there a science behind it? There is a science behind different divination systems such as tarot cards, and most of them work on similar principles. So basically they mirror situations, questions, intentions, causality, etc. So if you think about, if you look at the symbols in tarot cards, they are typically some kind of general archetypes that have been around for, maybe even thousands of years. So let's pick some examples. So let's say, for example, death card. What death represents. Everyone knows that death represents death, right? But in tarot, this is just a symbol, right? So death is the end of something, right? The end of life, maybe the end of a cycle. And now, depending on the question, intention, situation, in reading, the death card can represent some kind of end, right? But it doesn't have to represent physical death. It's just a symbol, right? So it kind of represents the end of something, right? Death is something that in different forms exists in nature, in history. For example, you have 4 seasons, right? Plants go through this cycle of rebirth. In the winter, kind of everything dies out, then spring, everything is reborn again. So in general, these kind of symbols, they represent some patterns that exist, right? But the card only represents the end of something, right? And every end is the beginning of something new at the same time, next phase. Let's say, for example, the sun. What sun represents? Sun gives life, right? So this card, when it appears, it might actually represent the beginning of something new, maybe a new relationship, maybe business, maybe some kind of stage in life, or whatever the question, intention is around, right? So this is an example. Let's say the Wheel of Fortune card, right? Another archetype. Life often goes through ups and downs, right? Sometimes you are on the bottom, sometimes you are on the top. This is the archetype that this card represents. It varies depending on the interpretation and situation. If your reading is around relationships, this is gonna have a different meaning than if the reading is about business, for example, right? So really the cards, all they do, they just mirror some kind of characteristics, some kind of blueprint. And basically everything is going through cause and effect, right? So sometimes you might have a prediction about the future that might become accurate because based on your behavior, based on some patterns you've been going through so far till the moment when you are having a reading, there is an outcome that's going to come based on your previous actions. So the card now might represent this outcome. The cards might basically be a mirror to that causality, to the outcome you're gonna get from based on your previous actions. Or there is some underlying cause and the cards just resonate, the symbols just resonate with that cause. There is no magic in these systems. When you decide to pick a card or you set up some intention, this has some sort of energetic blueprint. So now the card you might pick when you shuffle, the way you shuffle, that can create some kind of outcome, right? Why you're going to pick specific card. And the card really is resonating perhaps with your intention or situation or what's happening in your head or what's the outcome based on causality, right? Okay, let's pick up another card. Hanged Man. Another interesting archetype. We see a guy hanged the other way around, right? He's suspended. And suspension is just another situation that can apply to many different things, right? So for example, your relationship is suddenly suspended, or some business outcome didn't go through and the situation is suspended, right? This is when this card can appear, for example. So tarot cards are some of many different ways that these things work. They are just really good at showing a lot of symbols, general archetypes, right? But the same can be said about dreams, for example. In dreams, you can also get archetypes. You have general archetypes and you have your personal archetypes, right? So personal archetypes, they're going to be these symbols that are linked to your particular life, and then you have general archetypes, like let's say you're beaten by a snake, for example, something that represents a thing throughout the history. So, tarot cards is just one of many ways that represent a mirror to situations, because really situations, everything in life is cause and effect. So there are some probable outcomes that are going to happen already based on what's been happening so far, and the cards, all they do, they just mirror that to you in forms of symbols that are representing some kind of situations. That's it. There is no magic about tarot cards or any of these systems. They're just symbolic mirror to causality and patterns.